What if this video is no accident? What if it finds you exactly 7 days before your entire reality transforms? Your life isn't waiting to change, it's already changing, and this message is the signal. The question is, will you assume it's already done? The moment of change is never in the future, it is in the assumption of now. All transformation begins in imagination, not circumstance. To be found by change, you must first find the feeling. 7 days is not a prophecy, but a pattern of persistent assumption. What you assume hardens into fact through natural means. The law of assumption supersedes effort, logic, and delay. The outer world bows to the inner conviction. Life does not respond to need. It responds to identity. I once received a letter from a woman who, without exception, had struggled for years to change her circumstances. She believed in effort. She prayed with urgency. But nothing in her life moved, until the day she stopped trying and simply began to assume. She told me, "Something drew me to your message, but more strangely, something told me that within 7 days, I would no longer be the same person." And I asked her, "What did you do in those 7 days?" She replied, "I lived them as if the wish were already fulfilled." Let me tell you what happened. She imagined each morning that she was already living her new life. She walked with the confidence of a woman who knew the change had occurred. She didn't check the bank account. She didn't look for signs. She became the sign. And exactly 7 days later, the call came. The offer she had longed for, the relationship she believed was impossible. All of it flowed to her without effort. Because it wasn't effort that changed her life, it was assumption. You see, when I say, this video will find you 7 days before your life changes, I don't mean the video has power. You do. But it is no coincidence that you are hearing these words now. You are not here to observe. You are here to remember. The difference between those who manifest quickly and those who wait endlessly is not fate. It is clarity of assumption. While many cling to the law of attraction, waiting for signs or vibrations, the few who awaken realize they must think from the end, not of the end. That is the truth of conscious creation. To assume it's already done is not mental pretending. It is identity reformation. You must feel from the wish fulfilled. Speak from it. Sleep from it. Walk as if your spiritual awakening signs have already occurred. There is no delay in consciousness, only in acceptance. People often ask, how long does it take to manifest? My answer is always the same. As long as it takes you to stop contradicting your assumption. Because when your belief becomes dominant, reality shifting methods are unnecessary. Reality shifts on its own. The outer world is clay in the hands of your assumption. The manifestation breakthrough doesn't happen when you force the world to bend. It happens the moment you surrender to the feeling that it already has. Do not look to outer signs to confirm your inner change. Power of belief is not dependent on evidence. The evidence follows belief. Mind power transformation begins with one simple question. Who am I now? And if your answer is anything less than the person who has what you desire, then change the answer. Not tomorrow, not when the conditions look better, but now, because life does not give you what you want. It gives you who you are being. The moment of change is never in the future. It is in the assumption of now. There is a great illusion that has captivated the minds of most men, the belief that change happens gradually, that transformation is a matter of time, of external processes unfolding step by step. They believe that something must happen out there, a phone call, a promotion, a breakthrough, before they can feel as though life has truly changed. And yet, they fail to realize that change begins not in the movement of circumstances, but in the acceptance of identity. The very moment one dares to assume that they are already what they desire to be, they begin to move the universe without effort. For the outer is only a shadow of the inner arrangement. Time as you know it is not causal. It does not cause anything to happen. It merely reveals what has already been assumed. The future is not a mystery waiting to be solved. It is a harvest waiting to be claimed. If you assume now, in this present moment, that the desire is fulfilled, you step out of the waiting room and into the life you were always meant to live. The world teaches man to wait. It says you must prove yourself, achieve something, climb a ladder. But consciousness says otherwise. Consciousness says, dare to claim your desire as real, here and now, and the world must rearrange itself around your claim. It does not require evidence. It does not ask for signs. It moves only when you move within. Most people place their change on a leash called tomorrow. Someday I will be wealthy. Eventually, I will be loved. One day I will live in peace. But that day never comes, not because it is out of reach, but because it is never assumed now. The one who transforms his life is the one who says, I am it now, not with arrogance, but with quiet certainty. For the secret lies not in forcing the external to bend, but in surrendering to the inner conviction that it already has. You must understand that assumption is not pretending, it is not make-believe. It is the only creative act. When you assume something, truly accept it as your identity, it becomes a law unto itself. You are not playing dress up, you are being. And that being, when persisted in, becomes visible fact. The outer world is slow to respond only when you are hesitant within. Every delay, every denial you perceive is not because the world is against you, but because you are still negotiating with the old state. You are still entertaining the question, but what if it doesn't happen? And that question alone is the very root of delay. The one who assumes completely never asks if it will work, for he already lives in the world where it has. The moment you decide to change your state, not to beg for it, not to hope for it, but to embody it, you activate the true law. All things then begin to move, often invisibly, toward the realization of your new identity. You may not see the wheels turning, but they are. People, events, ideas, and even so-called coincidences begin to conspire to reflect your new state. This is not wishful thinking, it is law. And the law is always perfect in its unfolding. Many have asked, but what if I assume wrongly? What if I delude myself? And I say to them, you are already doing so. You have assumed lack, and so you see lack. You have assumed rejection, and so you experience rejection. You are already imagining constantly, but now you are being asked to do it deliberately, and that is where the transformation begins. To assume a new identity is to cut ties with the evidence of the old one. You must turn your back on the facts that argue against your desire. You must refuse to worship the altar of circumstance. Circumstances are not the creators of your life. They are its echo. You do not fight the echo, you change the sound. Imagine the man who wishes to be free of debt. He cannot assume freedom while constantly checking his balance. He cannot live in wealth while emotionally reacting to bills. If he wishes to live debt-free, he must first feel himself as such. He must rise each morning with the knowing that it is done. He must walk through the marketplace as one who spends without fear. He must see every transaction as an act of abundance, not lack. And though his outer account may still whisper otherwise, his inner reality must roar with certainty. And soon, often suddenly, the whisper fades and the roar becomes visible. Or take the woman longing for love. She cannot become lovable while identifying as unloved. She must dwell in the secret of being adored. She must assume herself to be wanted, cherished, pursued, not by force, but by identity. And the moment she no longer seeks love but becomes it, it must arrive, not because she chased it, but because she assumed it. This is the great mystery, that reality bends to assumption, not effort. That the true moment of change is invisible to the eye, but undeniable in feeling. And that the man who assumes his ideal now, without needing proof, is the one who lives in the freedom others only dream of. You are not waiting for a miracle. You are waiting to believe that it has already occurred. The moment you do, the miracle reveals itself. Not in the thunderous shout of change, but in the quiet unfolding of life reorganized. It is not the world that changes first, it is you. And in changing your inner state now, not in a week, not when it's convenient, but now, you change the timeline of your life forever. The moment of change is not later. It is always now, and now is already yours. All transformation begins in imagination, not circumstance. There are those who wait for the world to shift before they permit themselves to feel changed. And then there are those who understand that nothing changes unless it is first imagined. You do not climb out of difficulty by rearranging your outer world. You rise from it the moment you rearrange the structure of your inner awareness. To believe that conditions must improve before your life can improve is to mistake shadow for substance. The outer world is the reflection, the inner world is the projector. Until man understands that every circumstance is nothing more than an echo of imagination, he will continue to wander in circles, reacting to illusions, never touching the root. Imagination is the soil from which reality grows. Everything visible began as an invisible idea. Your home, your relationships, the very device upon which you listen to this message, all of it was first conceived as an inner vision, unseen and untouched by the world. Someone dared to imagine it. Someone believed what had not yet appeared, and the world, without fail, confirmed their assumption. That is the origin of all transformation, not effort, not logic, but vision sustained. Most men live as reporters of what is. They catalogue facts, repeat history, and recite what the senses dictate. But transformation is not found in reporting. It is found in declaring what shall be, even in the face of contradiction. To transform one's life, you must stop looking at what is and begin dwelling in what can be. More than that, you must dwell in what already is, in imagination. You must accept the unseen as more real than the seen. The senses will always point to what has been assumed previously. The role of imagination is to carve a new path where none yet exists. If you were to examine the life of anyone who rose from lack to wealth, from obscurity to influence, from despair to peace, you would find the same hidden thread running through it all. At some point, they saw themselves differently. They held in mind a vision of a new self. And though the world may have mocked them, dismissed them, or overlooked them, they persisted in the image within. The transformation was not triggered by outer acceptance, but by inner knowing. Do not wait for the world to validate your dream before you believe in it. Believe in it, and the world will be compelled to follow. To imagine is to enter a state, and every state once fully occupied becomes visible. If you persist in the assumption that you are now what you desire to be, life cannot help but arrange itself around that identity. The transformation you seek is not in changing the world, but in changing how you see yourself within it. The most powerful movements in history were birthed in silence. Great inventions, revolutions of thought, shifts in personal destiny, all of them were first quiet sparks within someone's mind. That spark, if guarded and fanned by attention, ignites a fire that the world must eventually see. Yet most people abandon the flame too early. They imagine for a moment, and when the outer world does not immediately conform, they return to their previous state. They declare, "It isn't working." But they are mistaken. It is always working. The moment you imagine, the seed is sown. It is your task to water it with faith, not doubt. Every return to the feeling of the wish fulfilled strengthens the roots of that unseen creation. Imagination does not require your effort. It requires your acceptance. You are not asked to force things into place. You are asked to dwell in the vision. Live from it. Let it color your thoughts, your actions, your reactions. You cannot transform while rehearsing the past. Transformation demands that you live as though your desire were already true. And imagination is the only faculty that permits this. Consider the artist who sees beauty on a blank canvas. The untrained eye sees nothing, but the artist sees everything. He holds the image in his mind before the brush ever touches the surface. His hand may be slow, but his vision is complete, and he never doubts the reality of what he sees within. That is how you must live. Not by waiting to see it in the world, but by seeing it so vividly within that the world must conform to your vision. Every great work, whether personal or collective, begins in the unseen. You are not at the mercy of the facts you observe. Facts are not causes, they are effects. Your job is not to rearrange effects, but to reshape the cause, and the cause is always your imagination. What you imagine with feeling and persist in becomes fact. That is the law. If you wish to change your health, you must see yourself as already well. If you long for love, you must imagine yourself already adored. If you desire success, you must feel yourself already living in that success. Even if all appearances suggest otherwise, the outer world may offer no evidence, but that is not your concern. Your only task is to remain faithful to the inner image, to live from it, to walk, speak, and sleep in the knowing that it is done. The world is a mirror, but you must be the source. Do not wait for the reflection to smile before you smile. Smile and the reflection must follow. The moment you dare to imagine a new self and truly accept it, that moment transformation begins. Not in the future, not after effort, but now in the invisible theater of your mind. Because all transformation begins in imagination, and imagination, rightly used, is the beginning of everything. To be found by change, you must first find the feeling. It is not enough to wish for transformation, nor is it enough to speak endlessly of desire. The world does not respond to idle talk or emotional begging. It responds to being. The law of creation is not moved by your words alone, but by the inner feeling from which your words are spoken. You may repeat affirmations 1,000 times, but if the feeling behind them remains rooted in doubt, lack, or separation, you will only multiply what you already are. To change the world around you, you must change what you are within, and the substance of that change is feeling. Many people seek outward signs that something new is coming. They scan the world for evidence that life is finally shifting, but this is to reverse the order of true manifestation. Change never arrives first in the outer world. It is always preceded by a shift in your emotional awareness, a new vibration of being. When you feel the reality of your desire, long before it appears, then and only then are you in harmony with its arrival. To wait for life to change before you feel changed is to bind yourself to delay. You are not a receiver of fate, you are a transmitter of states. The world reflects your inner emotional signature. If you walk in the energy of anxiety, you will encounter experiences that justify fear. If you walk in the joy of fulfillment, even while the world remains unchanged, you summon all that belongs to joy. The law is simple: you do not attract what you want. You attract what you are. And what you are is determined not by what you say or do, but by what you feel. The feeling of the wish fulfilled is the secret key. It is the invisible cause of all visible effects. No matter how distant your goal may seem, no matter how far removed your desire appears to be, the only real question is, can you feel its reality now? Can you dwell within the experience of already having what you seek? Can you surrender to the joy, the peace, the satisfaction of knowing that your desire is done? Most cannot. They say, but I need the money to feel wealthy, or I must be in love to feel loved, or I need healing to feel whole. But this is to misunderstand the very power that shapes all things. The one who masters reality is the one who feels first. The circumstances will catch up, they must, but they are always latecomers to the scene. The play begins within. Suppose you desire to be successful in your work. You could strive endlessly, network, hustle, chase opportunities, yet still find yourself running in circles, never reaching the satisfaction you seek. But suppose you close your eyes and enter into the feeling of already being the person who has succeeded. You see yourself in the role. You feel the ease. You walk through your office or home with the quiet pride of one who knows their value is recognized. That feeling, once stabilized and made natural, will outproduce 1,000 hours of labor. Why? Because you are no longer reaching, you are radiating. This is not laziness, nor does it mean you will do nothing. It means your actions will spring from the right state. You will not act to make something happen. You will act because it has already happened in you. Your behavior will no longer be an effort to prove or earn, but an expression of who you have become. And that difference is everything. Feeling is the secret bridge. It carries you from where you are to where you wish to be, but not by movement through space. It does so by altering your identity. When you occupy the feeling of the new version of yourself, the world responds as if it were true, because it is. To consciousness, nothing is more real than what is felt deeply, and what is felt consistently becomes fact. There is no room for half measures here. You cannot feel one way and expect another. You cannot long for love while vibrating with rejection. You cannot dream of abundance while soaking in the emotion of insufficiency. If your feeling and your desire are in conflict, feeling will always win. The law does not respond to requests, it responds to resonance. Every state has its own feeling. The moment you feel differently, you are no longer in the same state. You do not need to beg to enter a new life. You only need to feel from it. Not about it, not toward it, but from it. To feel from the desired state is to move into it. And from that point on, the world becomes a mirror to your new self. Practice this with small things. Imagine being content in your body, even before the healing occurs. Imagine being chosen and loved, even before the relationship arrives. Imagine the stability of wealth, even if the account still shows lack. The more natural the feeling becomes, the sooner the mirror reflects it. This is not fantasy. This is law. You are not being punished by delay. You are being invited into alignment. The very thing you seek is already complete in the realm of assumption, but it cannot reveal itself until you match its feeling. You cannot fool the law. It always returns to you what you truly are. So become what you wish, not tomorrow, but now. Not in word, but in feeling. To be found by change, you must first find the feeling. The emotion is the announcement. The sensation is the evidence. And the world, like a faithful servant, responds without resistance. What you feel within, you will find without. It is written in silence and fulfilled without fail. 7 days is not a prophecy, but a pattern of persistent assumption. It is not time that brings the change. It is not the days themselves that contain the magic. The power lies in the inner act, repeated and believed. 7 days is not a sacred number in itself, but a symbol, a cycle through which the mind, once disciplined, begins to yield fruit. When a man assumes a state and lives in that state persistently, unwaveringly for a week, not breaking it with doubt, not watering it down with logic, something profound begins to unfold. The mind, impressed with the reality of a new identity, begins to command the world into obedience. Many are drawn to the idea of change in a week because it satisfies the imagination's hunger for immediacy. But let us be clear, the number is not what transforms. It is the consistency of assumption over time that unlocks the invisible gates. The 7 days serve as a structure, a sacred window, during which you are invited to walk in the end, to feel from the fulfillment, not toward it. Each day a brick is laid in the unseen. Each assumption, each moment of conscious embodiment, is a seed. And though the soil may appear unchanged for days, beneath it, roots are forming. It is not uncommon for those who live by this principle to feel nothing on day one. Their old self still speaks. The evidence still argues, but they return to the feeling anyway. On day two, doubts may surface, the whispers of the past returning like waves against a new shoreline. Still, they persist. On day three, something internal shifts, perhaps a subtle peace, a moment where the desired state feels more natural than the former self. By day four, the lines begin to blur. The boundary between who they were and who they are becoming begins to dissolve. By day five, the imagined reality begins to feel like memory. It is no longer a wish, but a knowing. Then comes day six, where one may find themselves reacting differently, unconsciously reflecting the inner change. They speak with new authority. They walk with a stillness not born of arrogance, but of realization. And then, on the 7th day, something in the outer world responds. A call, an opportunity, a shift in the atmosphere, not always dramatic, but undeniably in alignment with the assumption held. This is not magic, it is structure, it is law. When the inner state is held with fidelity, the world must rearrange to reflect it. The time it takes is only the time required to fully convince yourself of its truth. For some, this takes minutes. For others, days. But the power of 7 days lies in its containment. It gives the mind a short but potent container in which to practice unwavering assumption. You are not asked to believe blindly. You are asked to remain faithful to a new self-image without contradiction. The outer world may scream its objections, but you do not answer. You remain in the secret place of feeling. This is the discipline, not of effort, but of refusal to return to the old self. Each moment you feel from the wish fulfilled, you chip away at the illusion of limitation. The form you have assumed becomes more than a dream. It becomes your dwelling. If you wish to test this, begin now. Choose a desire, not a wish to beg for, but a state to inhabit. Imagine what it would feel like were it already true. Walk in it today. Speak from it. Go to sleep tonight as though it were a memory. And do the same tomorrow. If the mind wanders, gently return it. If doubt arises, let it pass like a cloud, and go back to the feeling. Do this for 7 days, and you will no longer be the same person who began. Whether the world reflects the change immediately or not is irrelevant. For your inner shift is already the cause. The effects must come. The illusion of delay comes only from interrupted assumption. If you break the state on day 2 or 3, and then resume it later, you reset the cycle. This is why many feel stuck. They believe for a moment, then look for signs. When the signs do not appear fast enough, they fall back into the old state. But nothing is lost. Begin again. The moment you assume, the new creation begins. Your only task is to maintain it long enough for the world to catch up. There are those who say, "But how can I feel rich when I have no money? How can I feel loved when I am alone?" They misunderstand the law. You are not feeling these things because they are true. They become true because you feel them. The assumption is not based on evidence. It is the evidence. In 7 days, a man may utterly redefine his life. Not by doing, but by assuming. It is not the ticking of the clock that moves mountains, but the steady beat of inner conviction. A belief, once fully accepted, must objectify itself. The world is only a mirror, and the reflection comes only after the face is made. The power of 7 days lies not in superstition, but in focus. For 1 week, withdraw your attention from appearances. For 1 week, refuse to entertain anything that contradicts your desire. For 1 week, speak only from the end. Let the old man die, not through force, but through neglect. And you will rise quietly, faithfully, as a new being, not because the days changed you, but because you never let go of the state you chose to embody. In truth, the 7 days are not counting time. They are counting your persistence. They are the rhythm by which the invisible becomes visible. The pattern is always the same. Assume, persist, and see. What you assume hardens into fact through natural means. There is no miracle in the traditional sense. There is only the unfolding of what was always possible. Once assumed, the world you now experience, no matter how complex or painful, joyful or bland, is nothing more than the solidification of prior states of consciousness. It has taken shape, clothed itself in circumstance, and come to you not by accident, but by your sustained inner acceptance. You live in the harvest of your assumptions. The fact may wear the face of chance or the mask of coincidence, but its origin lies always in the unseen act of imagining. Accept it as true. A man may say, "I didn't ask for this," and yet upon careful self-observation, he will discover he entertained the thought of it, he felt it as a fear, he reacted as though it were true long before it appeared. The law does not discriminate. It simply reflects that which you hold within. As assumption moves toward fact with perfect fidelity, and it does so not through mystery or intervention, but through natural means. A conversation, a meeting, a shift in mood, an idea at the right moment. All these are instruments of the unseen architect, orchestrating outward events to mirror the inward arrangement. To understand this is to understand that there is no need for force. You do not wrestle with the world to change it. You do not chase, plead, or struggle. You change your assumption, and then wait faithfully as the world reshapes itself accordingly. The law does not require your exhaustion. It asks only for your certainty. The feeling of the wish fulfilled, once assumed and persisted in, is the cause. The facts that follow are its natural offspring. You will notice that once a thing is fully accepted internally, the outer path becomes strangely effortless. Opportunities arise, people appear, the very atmosphere seems to lean in your favor. And yet, from the outside, it all looks quite ordinary. That is the beauty of this law. It works in harmony with natural law. It does not suspend gravity or bend the sky. It simply moves within the bounds of reality, shifting details, decisions, and dialogues to bring forth what was long imagined. Suppose you imagine yourself to be employed in a new field, respected and well compensated. You don't know how this will come about. And you don't need to. You simply dwell in the inner conviction that it is already so. You walk as though it were done. You speak as one who has arrived. Your emotional tone shifts, your posture changes. Even your voice may deepen with confidence. These are not performances. They are symptoms of a new state. And from this new state, the means will come. A former colleague may mention an opening. A recruiter may reach out. You may stumble upon a listing or speak with someone who introduces you to the very opportunity that fits the role you've been inwardly living in. None of it is magic. All of it is natural. The world is always answering your assumptions, not with lightning, but with threads. Subtle threads of events, seemingly disconnected, weaving together a new scene. The artist does not need to know how every stroke will land. He trusts the image within and paints. So, too, must you. Assume the end boldly and permit the natural world to fill in the path. Many fail not because the law is weak, but because they break their assumption before it can ripen. They look for signs too soon. They grow impatient. And in doing so, they return to the old self. The doubter, the struggler, the one who waits for permission. But the one who transforms is the one who assumes and holds. Even when the outer world shows nothing new, he remains faithful, for he knows that the delay is only in time, not in truth. And truth, once assumed, must appear in form. You are never required to know the how. That is the business of life itself. Your only work is to occupy the state, to assume the feeling, as naturally as you once assumed your limitations. Did you question how lack would persist? Did you analyze the means by which you remained unhappy? No, you simply accepted it as real, and so it was. Now reverse the process, assume the opposite, and let the world show you how creative and obedient it truly is. Every fact you now accept was once a fluid possibility. Your beliefs shaped them into solidity, and now that they are here, they seem immovable. But nothing is permanent in a world ruled by assumption. Hardened facts can dissolve, just as new realities can condense into form. It is not the fact that matters. It is the state that gave birth to it. Change the state, and the fact must follow. The great lie is that things are just the way they are. But the deeper truth is this: they are the way you have assumed them to be, either knowingly or by default. And if you dare to assume differently, persistently, without contradiction, you will find that even the most immovable parts of your life begin to shift. The hardened facts will soften, break open, and reform around your new self-concept. So you see, what you assume does not remain in imagination. It seeks embodiment. It moves through the world quietly, drawing to itself the people, places, and circumstances necessary to clothe itself in flesh. The world obeys your inner decree, not with thunder, but with orchestration. And when the event finally arrives, it will seem natural, inevitable even, but you will know the truth. You will remember the moment you assumed, and you will smile, not because it was magic, but because it was law. The law of assumption supersedes effort, logic, and delay. There are many who believe that the only path to success, to love, to health, to wealth is through strenuous effort and perfect logic. They worship action and strategies. They kneel at the altar of cause and effect, believing that only if the steps are followed with precision will the result come. And yet they struggle endlessly, for the very effort they revere springs from a sense of lack. Their work, though intense, is saturated with the fear that what they seek is still far away. And so the delay continues, not because the world withholds, but because their inner state continues to deny the very thing they labor to achieve. The law does not operate by physical strength or intellectual sharpness. It does not bend to formulas or timelines. It responds only to assumption. An assumption is not an action of the body, but a movement of awareness. When you assume that something is already yours, truly and deeply, you no longer act to obtain it. You act because it is already present in you. And those actions, taken not from striving but from being, unfold in the perfect rhythm of life. Effort is not wrong, but it must come from the right place. Most people act out of fear. They make desperate moves, not because they are certain, but because they are terrified of what will happen if they don't. Their mind says, "You must do this or else." And so the action is filled with resistance. It does not flow, it grinds. They think their exhaustion proves their worthiness. But life is not responding to how hard they work. It responds only to who they believe they are. When a man assumes he is successful, his actions change without strain. He speaks differently. He walks into a room with a presence. He makes decisions without hesitation. He does not second guess or overanalyze. Why? Because he is no longer chasing the state. He is it. And the world, seeing this inner confidence, reflects it back with perfect accuracy. People respond to his energy. Doors open. Resources come. All without the sweat and friction of anxious effort. This is not laziness, it is precision. Logic, too, has its limits. The rational mind tries to map the road ahead, to make sure every step makes sense. But assumption does not require sense. It requires faith. Not blind faith in the sky, but inner faith in one's own creative power. Logic says, based on the facts, this can't happen. But assumption answers, it already has. Logic may list all the reasons you cannot have what you desire. Your age, your past, your finances, your lack of connections. But none of that matters to the law. The only question it answers is, what do you believe yourself to be now? Consider the woman who believes she is loved. She may live alone. She may not have received a single message all week. But if, within, she walks as one who is adored, cherished, chosen, the world must rise to confirm her assumption. She will find herself receiving compliments from strangers. An old friend may reach out. A new connection appears unexpectedly. Not because she tried to manipulate the outcome, but because she assumed the inner identity and life responded accordingly. Delay is the child of contradiction. What you assume consistently will harden into fact, but when you alternate between faith and doubt, desire and fear, you send mixed instructions to the world. One day you feel the wish fulfilled, the next you look around and say, it hasn't happened yet. And in that moment, you return to the old state. And the cycle begins again. The delay is not punishment. It is a mirror, showing you that your assumption has not yet settled into conviction. But when you hold the end with persistence, when you return again and again to the feeling of the wish fulfilled, regardless of appearances, you shorten time. What could have taken years collapses into days. Circumstances shift with a swiftness that the logical mind cannot comprehend. And others will say, you're lucky. How did that happen so fast? But you will know it was never speed. It was alignment. You must understand that nothing can be added to you. All that you desire already exists in the eternal now. You are not creating from scratch. You are selecting from infinite possibilities. The moment you assume the new state, you enter the timeline in which that reality is natural. It becomes the most reasonable outcome in that dimension of being. It no longer requires force. It requires permission. Your permission to receive what you have already claimed. Let this be your new way of living, not one of pushing, persuading, or proving, but of assuming and allowing. Let others hustle with tight fists. You will manifest with open hands. Let them race in panic. You will walk in calm knowing. Let the facts shout against your vision. You will feel the deeper truth until the facts bend. You are not subject to the rules of effort, logic, or delay. You are subject only to the law of assumption. Assume well, and all else must follow. Assume poorly, and no effort in the world will free you. The power has always been yours, not to work harder, but to believe better. Not to fight the current, but to rise above it. When you live from the end, the assumption that it is already done, the world begins to unfold in ways both natural and miraculous, until what once seemed far becomes your ordinary life. The outer world bows to the inner conviction. The world, though appearing so solid, so fixed, is nothing more than the outpicturing of man's internal arrangement. It is not external authority, nor fate, nor accident that directs the events of your life. It is conviction, quiet, often invisible to others, but deeply felt within. The outer world is not the master, it is the servant, and it obeys without question the tone you carry in consciousness. Your assumption, once accepted, becomes law to your world. Conviction is not noisy. It does not shout or plead. It simply knows. The man who is convicted of his identity walks differently. He does not need to argue with reality. He does not fight the facts. He knows that they are only the shadows cast by former beliefs. And so, with patience and poise, he plants a new seed, tends it with inner faith, and allows the garden of experience to change. Many attempt to force the world to conform before they have conformed their mind. They seek to rearrange the reflection while still holding the same internal picture. But the mirror is faithful. It does not lie. It cannot show you wealth while you remain poor in imagination. It cannot reflect love while you carry rejection in your soul. It cannot present freedom while your inner speech is chained to limitation. The outer always follows the inner. Conviction is not a matter of emotion, though it may stir deep feelings. It is a settled recognition, a spiritual signature. It is a feeling of certainty that something is true, long before the evidence has had time to arrive. The one who lives from conviction does not seek signs, for his very being is the sign. His actions, his choices, his language all arise from a place that no longer doubts. And because he no longer doubts, the world has no choice but to confirm him. There is no separation between what you believe to be true and what you experience. The gap, if there appears to be one, exists only in time. The law itself is immediate. But man often wavers. He assumes something new, and when the outer world does not immediately reflect it, he returns to his former state. This returning is what extends the delay. But if he had held firm, if he had remained convicted even when nothing appeared to change, he would have seen the change appear. Because conviction rearranges life. You must be ruthless in your inner world. Do not entertain images or words that contradict your assumption. If you say, "I am abundant," then every inner conversation must match that claim. If you assume love, then even when alone, you carry the awareness of being loved. You no longer ask when or how, you already are. And from this being, the outer bows. It bows through subtle movements. An email arrives, a person reconsiders, an opportunity is extended. These are not random. They are the obedient echoes of a consciousness that has chosen a new self. The world cannot help but move in accordance with who you have become within. This is the secret. The world does not give you what you want. It gives you what you are. And you are what you are convicted of being. To be convicted is to be unmoved by appearances. It is to stand still in the midst of chaos, knowing that your assumption is more real than any temporary fact. You do not deny the facts. You simply override them. You say, "Yes, this is what appears, but I know what I have accepted." And you return again and again to the inner feeling of your chosen reality, until it becomes the only atmosphere in which you breathe. The outer will fight you only when you are still fighting within. The resistance you see is not from the world, but from your own divided heart. Once your assumption is whole, once your conviction is pure, resistance vanishes. Events become cooperative. People begin to act in alignment with your unseen command. And all of this without manipulation. It happens because you have aligned with law. There is no need to convince others. Your conviction is enough. Those who try to persuade others of their new identity often do so because they are not yet fully persuaded themselves. But when you are settled in your new state, you find no need to speak of it. You live it. You breathe it. And those around you, though they may not know why, begin to treat you differently. The tone of your life changes. This is not arrogance. It is the humility of mastery. The understanding that your inner world is cause and your outer world is effect. When you rearrange the cause, the effect must follow. And the rearrangement is simple. Assume the new and hold it. Walk in it. Speak from it. Let it become so natural that to speak otherwise would feel dishonest. In time, your environment reshapes itself to fit the mold you carry in consciousness. There are no exceptions. The law does not fail, but it requires your full participation. Not through effort or striving, but through surrender. Surrendering to the new idea, the new feeling, the new self-image. Once you surrender to the assumption, life moves. Circumstances yield. The seemingly impossible becomes ordinary. And you realize that you were never waiting for the world to change. The world was always waiting for you. When the conviction is complete, the world must bow. Not because it wishes to reward you, but because it is bound by law to reflect the image you have held. You are the origin. Life is the mirror. Stand firm in your vision, and the reflection must come, not by force, not by hope, but by law. Life does not respond to need. It responds to identity. To believe that need has creative power is one of the great illusions that keep man in a state of delay. How often have you heard it said, "But I need it so badly. Why hasn't it come?" The intensity of the need, the desperation behind the desire, the frequency of the plea, none of these things move the law. Life does not deliver according to what you need. It delivers according to what you are. The law responds to your inner structure of being, not to your outer state of yearning. Need belongs to the consciousness of separation. It assumes that what you desire is far away, somewhere else, out of reach, and must be chased or earned. It places your good outside yourself. You feel incomplete, and therefore the world reflects that incompleteness. Every act you perform from this place of need will only echo back more reasons to continue needing. For the assumption that you do not yet have is the very block to its arrival. Identity, on the other hand, is the acceptance that the desire is already yours. It is the assumption that you are already the person who possesses, enjoys, and lives from the fulfillment. It is not a reaching, it is a becoming. When you take on the identity of your fulfilled desire, you eliminate the distance between you and it. You no longer ask, when will it come? Because you are now operating from the premise that it already has. Your thoughts, emotions, and actions all spring from this foundation. And because they do, the world conforms without resistance. You must understand that the law is impersonal. It does not bend for the one who is most emotional, nor does it delay for the one who is calm. It simply reflects the assumption you carry. The moment you identify with something, life accepts it as fact. If you walk in the world as though you are unwanted, unsupported, unseen, you will encounter people and events that affirm those beliefs, not because you are fated to be mistreated, but because you have unconsciously claimed that identity and the law must echo it back. But the opposite is also true. Begin now to identify as the one who is loved, chosen, successful, vibrant, whole, and you will see that the outer world, though it may resist for a moment, will eventually bend. People will treat you differently, not because they have changed, but because you have. You are no longer signaling lack, you are radiating fulfillment. And fulfillment, when assumed, becomes magnetic. This is why it is said that the rich get richer and the poor get poorer, not because the world is unjust, but because identity perpetuates itself. The one who believes he is abundant acts differently, speaks differently, invests differently. His state of being invites opportunities that reinforce his inner wealth. Meanwhile, the one who identifies with poverty, no matter how deeply he desires prosperity, continues to make choices from the belief that he does not yet have. And so his world reflects that truth. The law cannot contradict your concept of self. If you wish to receive something new, you must first become someone new in consciousness. The question is not, how do I get this? But, who would I be if I already had it? That is the golden key. When you begin to answer that question honestly and live from that answer consistently, you unlock the power of true creation. This is why affirmations often fail. A man may repeat words 1,000 times, but if his identity remains unchanged, his world will remain the same. He says, I am successful, while still seeing himself as a failure. He says, I am loved, while still feeling unwanted. He tries to plant seeds of truth on soil of doubt. And the harvest reflects not the words, but the feeling beneath them. It is not repetition alone that changes things. It is assumption. And assumption always begins with identity. Begin now to see yourself as the man or woman who already has what they once needed. Feel the confidence of completion. Let your inner dialogue shift. Observe how your reactions change when you carry yourself as one who already is. And you will see that your circumstances no longer control you. They respond to you. Need binds you to the old self. Identity frees you to enter the new. Every great change you have experienced in life has followed a moment where you chose, consciously or unconsciously, to accept a new concept of yourself. You looked in the mirror differently. You walked into a room with a new posture. You spoke with unexpected certainty. You didn't wait for evidence. You became the evidence. And so it is now. If you continue to hold yourself in a state of needing, you will continue to chase shadows. But the moment you let go of needing and assume having, everything changes. Your identity is the magnet, not your longing. Life does not give you what you cry for. It gives you what you claim. Calmly, consistently, confidently, from within. Let the old self be silent. Let the new self rise. Speak from the end, walk in the end, rest in the end. For the one who has no need. And the one who has no need possesses all. You are not here to chase a life. You are here to awaken to it. You were never meant to beg for change, plead for transformation, or strain under the weight of delay. The secret has always been within you. Assumption is the creative act. What you feel to be true, what you dare to embody without seeing, what you persist in regardless of appearances. This alone determines the shape of your world. Each of these teachings leads to one singular truth: your inner state is the cause, and the outer world is the effect. Circumstances are not creators, they are reflections. There is no power outside your consciousness greater than the power within it. Imagination is not a place of escape, it is the workshop of reality. And identity, not effort, is the magnet of your destiny. When you assume a new state of being, not temporarily but with conviction, all things begin to move to support that assumption. People shift, paths open, events reorganize, not because you forced them to, but because they had no choice. The law responds perfectly, faithfully, silently. So go now not as one who seeks, but as one who remembers. Walk not as the person waiting for change, but as the embodiment of change itself. For the moment you assume you are, you become, and the moment you become, the world, so long resistant, so long indifferent, bows in harmony to the truth you have accepted, live from the end. Feel it real. Persist in the unseen, and let your life unfold, not by chance but by law.